Hey, good morning, guys. We're going to go through the Catena, or the 7 quotations from verse 1, verse 5 of chapter 1, down through verse 13, or verse 14, I guess you would say, of chapter 1. And this forms the Catena. There's a clear inclusia that happens right here. So you've got, and to which of the angels has he ever said? And then here it says, for to which of the angels did God ever say? So clearly that marks out this whole section as a unit, and there are 7 quotations, pretty clearly meant to be taken as a unit. This is sometimes called stringing pearls. That's the rabbinic term for it. It's sometimes called a Catena. We're going to go through what's going on here and why is he talking about angels. Is it just because the Jews liked angelology? I think that's definitely part of it. Or is it just because here he's talking about how the law was given through angels, right? And so there was a big punishment for not obeying the law, which is given through angels. How much more for this gospel given through the Son? That's definitely part of it. But here, he's been talking about these aspects of the Son, which I think has a pattern, basically going from things that are predicated on his humanity, and then things that are predicated solely on his divinity. Now here's going to use angels as a foil for talking about his status and his substance, or his office and his ontology. These words, and most of the content of this is going to be coming from a book called The Paradox of Sonship, written by Bobbie, Jamieson. There's a few different ways of looking at the structure of this. George Guthrie looks at son and angel and angels, and he sees something called the verbal analogy going on here. Definitely possible that could have something to do with the structure. I like the way that Bobbie Jamieson splits this up, where he goes basically 3, 3, and 1. So there's 3 quotes here that are grouped, then there's 3 quotes, like basically 4 through 6, and then number 7 is the third grouping, right? So the first 3 talk about his office, the next 3 talk about his ontology. Right, so and then you've got these next verses talking about his ontology, so office and ontology. And then this next part talking about, again, continuing on his ontology. This is quote number 5, here's quote number 6. And then talking about his office. Then let's also look at the addressees of each of these. Another cool alliteration that he'll use is status and substance. So from this perspective, you've got these 2 angel quotes in the middle, where he's talking about the angels, and then these are branching out into these 2 quotes addressed from the Father to the Son. So that would look like, it's kind of hard to see on here, but you get these quotes 3 and 4 to the angels, and they're contrasted with these quotes from the Father to the Son, the Father to the Son. So quote 1 and quote 2 are the Father to the Son, contrasted with quote 3 about the angels. Quote 4 about the angels is contrasted with these quotes about the Son, quotes about the Son, and then number 7 is the Father to the Son. Also, another interesting thing to notice is that every time that the word Son is used, but of the Son, he says, this kind of Son right here is referring to the eternal Son, right? But he shall be to me a son. This has in view this use of the word as like the office. And then again, you've got sort of a sandwich thing going on here, where you've got this office, ontology, office, or status, substance, status. Let's look at that down here. For to which of the angels did God ever say, you are my son, today I have begotten you? Or again, I will be to him a father, he shall be to me a son. These are, clearly using this word son here, but this is talking about these Davidic moments prophesied of the coming Messiah. This is Psalm 2, you are my son, today I have begotten you. I will be him to me a father, he shall be to me a son. Obviously talking about 2 Samuel there. So this is referring to the messianic office here. And then, but again, when he brings God's firstborn into the world, he says that all God's angels worship him. So the thing here, there's a couple of things. First of all, the firstborn into the world, this is orkimenos, and it's referring to the world to come. As you see in 2:5, so go down here, the world to come. Here this word world is not cosmos or anything like that, it is the world to come, like kaminos. And so this is not talking about the incarnation. This is referring to his human accomplishment of coming into heaven exalted. And so this is a time to worship. This is getting at not the substance of the worship, but the timing of the worship. So when he brings his firstborn into the Son, so he receives the worship predicated on his divinity, yes, but he is receiving it as a human. So you're getting here to the unique nature of this sonship, that is, so as you are my son, today I've begotten you. that is a kingship that is accomplished by him as a human, but then also this worship is accomplished by him as a human. It's pretty interesting that you have something predicated on divinity, worship, but it is accomplished as a human. And this is one of the big things about partitive exegesis, is that sometimes these lines get interestingly blurry, Okay, so then we go to the next section. So remember, you get kind of a split here. Notice that, again, you've got or again, and again, and then this one doesn't have the again. So you get a new section here. So of the angels, he says. So this is kind of starting the new thing. You just notice this from the grammar of the text. So of the angels, he says, this kind of starts a new thing. He makes his angels winds and his ministers a flame of fire. He's making his angels. So up here, the angels are interesting because of the fact that they are servants. They're worshiping him. Here, they're interesting because they are shapes, right? They're made by their creator. They're the clay in the potter's hand. Their plasticity is what's being emphasized here, their mutability. So up here, the servanthood, is contrasted with the sovereignty of Christ. Down here, their shapeness is contrasted with the fact that he's the creator, right? And so that's what you're going to see. Their mutability is a foil for his immutability. Their temporality is a foil for his eternality. So those are going to be the things that are pointed out here. And it's pretty interesting if you look at the holistic nature of this, where up here you've got office, and down here you've got office. In the middle, they're trying to make you not lose sight of the fact that he is God. And so, yes, there is this economy, there's this accomplishment that happens within the economy, but don't lose sight of the fact that he is God, and that's why he is supreme. So let's get into some of these individual texts. You've got the angels. He makes his angels winds, his ministers a flame of fire. So he makes, and the ministers, these two M words kind of get at the two things going on here. One, that they are created, and two, they're foil for his sovereignty. So here, your throne, O God, is forever and ever. So of the eternal Son, he says, your throne, O God, is forever and ever. So here we're getting at the nature of the rule, but he's being talked to as God. So notice that sonship is pulled up into what it means to be God, right? Part of what God is entails sonship, right? Of the Son, he says, your throne, O God. Another interesting thing to notice here is that just as John in his Trinitarian theology has self-sameness, also differentness, I guess you would call it, this one has it as well. So therefore, God, your God. So he both has a God and is God. So this withness and isness is stuff that is not just for John, but the same thing is going on here. Also, a very clear statement about the divinity of Christ, one of the most clear ones in the Bible. I have this, and he says, your throne, O God, is forever and ever. Notice here, it's his eternality that is being emphasized here. All right, and then I think also the fact that he is God. But then here you get his eternality and his immutability. Remember, the angels are shaped into whatever he wishes. And here, this verse is using the creation. So here, it's not the angels themselves, but of course, angels are part of creation. All right, so that's what's going on here. So you've got him pre-existent, right? So he was there at the. So you, Lord, laid the foundation of the earth in the beginning, and then at the end, you are the same, and your years have no end, right? So they all wear out like a garment, but you, and so they will be changed, but you are the same. There's the immutability of him, the foil being creation, and then here he exists long after creation and prior to creation, so the creation is a foil for his eternality on both ends, right? So one other thing to notice here is that in the quotes themselves, the word son is not used. So within the quote, when the word son is used, it's kind of getting at this office. But here, when this word son is used to sort of start out the quotes, it's this ontology, the eternal Son. And then these words, these names of God from the Old Testament, the two main ones, God and Yahweh, are both applied to the Son. Right, so the original quote from Psalm 102 uses the word Yahweh. So that, clearly this next section here is getting into divinity, the pre-existence, the immutability of the Son, irrespective of the economy, just kind of part of the theology itself. And then he returns to the ontology here, to which of the angels has he ever said, "Sit at my right hand until I make your enemies a footstool for your feet." Again, and I think this is giving you a time frame, right? So right now, you've got in mind the inauguration. All right, and so from that perspective, then here he goes back to this imagery of them as servants, right? So previously they were shapes. They were part of the creation, molded for his will. And here he goes back to them being servants. Specifically, I think he has, in view this time frame of the inauguration of the Son's rule. And so now they are at his beck and call. He is the one who sends these servants for the sake of those who will inherit salvation. So his sovereignty, right, is the predicate for their sentness. And it has a time, in view this time of those inheriting salvation. Obviously the inheriting happening at the end, but those who are to inherit salvation. So again, the Catena here, I think, is, yes, anticipating the injunction, the exhortatory material in 2:1-4, but it's also an expansion on these attributes of the Son that were listed here in the exordium in verses 1-4. So a beautiful set of texts to reflect on the superiority of the Son by nature of his ontology and his office. And so there you go.